I've made millions and millions of dollars as a speaker, but that's because I haven't focused on it. You don't prepare a speech, you prepare yourself to speak. Played football, I was paralyzed in a tackling drill. 16 doctors, 15 told me I would not recover. And my life spiraled downward until I hit what I thought was rock bottom. I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better. It's easier to act your way into positive thinking than it is to think your way into positive action. People don't give a rat's wackazoodle if you and I have ever succeeded. They want to know, Devin Clark, did you ever fail? Dan, did you ever fall down? Get knocked down? What did you do about it? Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. That's why we train and prepare and practice so hard. Pressure is not something that's naturally there. It's created when you question your own ability. When you know what you've been trained to do, there's never any questions. So in life, there's no mistakes, only lessons.
This is the Mr. Burr Show.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Man, today we're going to touch on something that is one of the biggest fears for most people. It's public speaking. I know I was terrified when I started doing it. And the person I have on today was actually inducted into the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame. So I think he knows a thing or two about how to do it. I don't know. He's a New York Times bestseller of, 37 books. Nothing major. Also, one of the best human beings I've ever met. You guys are going to get a ton of value. You're going to get some laughs. The guy has some really good jokes. You're going to hear a few. He said he wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to twist his arm and make sure he does. Without further ado, guys, I want to introduce to you Dan Clark. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Devin. And for the record, I'm a songwriter. You forgot that in the intro. Got some gold records in country music. And I would write a song about Devin Burr, but I don't know what rhymes with stud, muffin, hunk of burning love. So let's just get that right out of the way, baby.
Now, I want you to do it, though. I want you to try.
That's very
I want
funny.
you to make a song that rhymes with that somehow.
I will. Just, ever since I put Devin's picture on the cover of my books, they've started to sell like hotcakes. So I wish I had thought of that idea in a marketing mindset long ago.
Well, guys, let's jump right into it. Public speaking. So how did you become a professional speaker?
That's a great question. A lot of people call me. Every athlete wants to be a speaker. Every actor wants to be a speaker. Everyone famous that I've ever met, anyone who's an entrepreneur who has started their business eventually wants to be a speaker. We know the power of being on a stage, the power of visibility is one of the greatest coinages or pieces of commerce that we possess. And so it's forced me to really think about my journey, and I appreciate you asking me about that, Devin, because I don't think anyone can just wake up and say, I want to be a speaker. And we've all heard that the number one fear of people is the fear of speaking in public, and I disagree. The number one fear of people is not speaking well in public, because when you're prepared, you shall not fear. So I've taught public speaking. I've been doing this for 4 decades, and was named one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the world. And I'm a primary contributing author to all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And I'm only sharing that because I'm a storyteller. Everybody resonates with a story. Facts tell, stories sell. In real estate, in personal coaching, in art, does not matter. It's the story. And so as a professor for the last 11 years, it's forced me to crystallize and quantify what I know about speaking, about how to, where do you find your content? How do you start a speech? How do you structure the speech? How do you hone in on your signature story? How do you create a signature speak that listeners love? And it all begins with the answer to your question, Devin. You got to have a calling to speak. So I always ask people 2 questions that help them answer whether or not they could possibly be a speaker, not just a speaker, but become a full-time paid speaker. That people would want you on their program because of your message. And the 2 questions are simple. What would you drive 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free? And if you wouldn't, it's not a calling, it's a job, which means you'll use every excuse under the sun not to show up. I've never missed a speech since 1982. I've given 6,000 speeches in 75 countries, worked with most of the Fortune 500 companies, Super Bowl champions, NASA, CIA, United Nations. I've gone downrange 8 times to Iraq and Afghanistan firing up our troops, and I've never missed a speech ever. And it's not because I'm such a noble human being. It's because I'll get into my story of how I became a speaker, but I played football for 13 years and I was paralyzed for 14 months. I went to 16 doctors, 15 of whom told me I would not recover. I would never get any better. And in that process, I lost my identity. I thought I was a football player when in reality, that's just what I did, not who I am as a man. And so in the reality, Devin, as close as we become as friends and as I've watched you work your magic, you're more than a social media hero. You're more than a celeb. You're one of the most genuine, thoughtful, caring, compassionate human beings I've ever met, and I compliment you for that. Because in our conversations off camera, where they don't always talk about business, although that's exciting to figure out how to make more money so we can make a bigger difference, I realized that you have a calling to change the world. And you're using your platform, as crazy as it was in the beginning and as crazy as it was as you created your platform at Celebrity, it has always been, I believe, knowing you, that it's always been a calling for you. How can you change the world? And I know for a fact, bro, that there's at least one man and one woman in every one of my audiences who is hurting as badly as I was. I was suicidal. I was at the top of my game. But I got all my attention and everything that I thought I was from my body, as an athlete, as an elite athlete. And then one day it was taken away from me, so I lost my identity. I figured out how to get back. I battled back to a 95% recovery. And so if something that I could possibly say in a speech to help someone save their marriage, or to convince them that they're here for a reason, that they shouldn't take their life. If I could say something that would spawn them to get over the obstacle right now to continuously make their entrepreneurial dream come true, that's worth it to me. It's a calling. And the money takes care of itself.
Right.
And I've made millions and millions of dollars as a speaker, but that's because I haven't focused on it. You don't prepare a speech, you prepare yourself to speak. And the ultimate compliment I have of you is that you're exactly the same off stage as you are on stage. This isn't a show. And I would hope that everybody would say that about me. I'm the exact same off stage as I am on stage, because I've answered what would I drive 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free. And then the second question is actually the tip of the spear. If you had 1 hour to live, what would you say? What's your last lecture? You have 2 beautiful children, a brand new dad as of 10 days. What would you go into a studio and record so that after you take your last breath, your children can see what dad had to say to the world, and you could convince your loved ones, your most precious individuals in your life, your children. Any male can be a father, but it takes a special man to be a dad, the lyrics to one of my hit songs. What message do you want to leave to them so that they know what it means to be a real man, to be a real dad, to be a compassionate servant leader, to use your platform and influence to change the world, to save people's lives? So that's the preamble to the answer to your question. And I promise I won't answer your questions with these 97-minute, rambles. But I want people to know that those are the lenses through which I see life and becoming a speaker. So I didn't set out to be a speaker. My signature story is basically, as I said, I played football. I was paralyzed in a tackling drill. 16 doctors, 15 told me I would not recover. And my life spiraled downward until I hit what I thought was rock bottom. And that's very significant to my story. Because every single one of us have had an episode in our life, in a personal relationship, we've lost everything. We've had business partners screw us out of millions of dollars. We've had all these devastating, life-altering experiences. So the question is, so what are you going to do about it? Will you react or will you respond? And now that I've recovered, the 3 most frequently asked questions that I share with every audience. Number 1, what do you mean, Clark, that you hit rock bottom? The reality is nobody ever hits rock bottom, no matter how hard or bad it gets. Nobody ever hits rock bottom. We hit rock foundation. We hit rock belief. We hit the baseline core values and governing principles on which we were raised. A dear friend of ours Chris Noggle, who is our financial literacy guru, our money coach, he basically helps us understand that you don't just scratch the surface and go to the superficial elements of what we think money is. You go to the time value of money. You understand money from a different perspective. And based on that foundational belief, you can invest. You can do whatever you want to do, which you're an expert in, which has really been, you've been the benefit of your knowledge. Disseminating your knowledge has really been the benefit of what your platform does for other people. That's how you're serving others, to help them, prick their conscience and let go of the last and lame definitions of money and how you use it to the new illuminated version. So based on that point, I had to get right down to rock bottom. If you have anybody who's battled with addiction, one of my songs, it was the sickness that made me well. So we don't hit rock bottom. We just have to have that man in the mirror, that woman in the mirror experience. Like, okay, so who are you and what do you really believe? So the second question is, Clark, why did you go to so many different doctors? I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better, who reminded me that knowledge is power, but it has no heart. We don't learn to know, we learn to do. All the information in the world isn't going to make a person successful. It's like the guy who has 3 PhDs, one in philosophy, one in psychology, one in sociology. He doesn't have a job, but at least he can explain why. So the point is, reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. If you don't believe that, go talk to a realtor.
Right.
Figure out why someone finally pulls the trigger and says, I'll buy. What is it about when we go on a car dealership and we start thinking about our teenage dreams, and now we're in a position to make that dream come true? And it has absolutely nothing to do with the bells and whistles and the horsepower of the car. We're so far beyond that it's emotion, man. Now I can finally pull the trigger. And that's what life's about. So it brings me to the third question. What took me so long to recover? If you're still struggling to pivot out of COVID, it's because you're focused on pivot, which is the stupidest word I've ever heard, because it means you go around in a circle. If you pivot, you just end up exactly where you started. Mm-hmm. So at some point, we've got to redefine, we've got to change our perspective. And I share in my speeches my opportunity to soar to the edge of space. Not a whole lot of civilians get that opportunity. And a few years ago, on October 23rd, I had the rare opportunity to soar to the edge of space in a U-2 reconnaissance aircraft. So I intensified my training for 2 months, lost 29 pounds, mandatory, checked onto the base for a full day of orientation. I was fitted into my 130-pound spacesuit. There's a 15-minute documentary on YouTube. You can check it out, or you can go to my website, danclark.com, and snoop around. It's kind of cool because I had video camera inside the cockpit and outside. And I climbed aboard the aircraft with my commander, and we immediately climbed to 17 miles above the Earth's surface, where for 5 hours I sat in the sounds of silence, looking at the breathtaking curvature of the Earth, gazing into the endless blackness of the universe and pondering eternity and my place in it. And in that environment with an unobstructed view of Mother Earth, I realized that it changed my life forever. One moment changed my life forever. How? And why? It forever changed my perspective. And the reason why perspective is so powerful is because it controls everything that we believe and do. So this doctor changed my perspective. He changed my attitude. He changed my probability into possibility. Let me give you a couple of quick examples of the power of perspective. Is your glass half empty or half full? Or is it refillable? It's perspective. Let's say that wall in this studio magically opens up, and Jacob, the amazing engineer, and you and I have a chance to look at the same lashing rainstorm, and one of us complains, what a horrible day, and someone else exclaims, what a wonderful day, the weather did not change. It's perspective. Another great example, are you taller, are you short, are you wide, are you thin, are you fast, are you slow, are you smart, or are you stupid? Are you pretty, or are you pretty ugly? Says who compared to what?
Right.
And Einstein reminds us everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its entire life believing it is stupid. Let's compare ourselves not against others, but against what we're capable of. This doctor, in the confines of my woe me, lost my dream, lost my identity, and he simply just shifted my perspective to believe that I could get better if I just went through the proper steps of rehabilitation. And on a side note, I've been an athlete my whole life. I was the Golden Gloves boxing champion. I was an alpine ski racing champion. 3.5 years, I was a motocross champion. I've broken my nose. I've broken my jaw. I've broken my neck. I've broken my back. I've had my head sewn up 11 times. I've had 2 hernias. That's funny. I've had 2 hernias. Had 7 surgeries in my knees. What's my point? Every single time I went through the proper steps of rehabilitation and I never cut corners, every part of my body that I injured became stronger than it was when I injured it, before I injured it. And that holds true with our mind, our attitude, and with our heart, with our attitude, with our desire, with our resilience. We can get better if we're just willing to do what we have to do, put in the work, change our mindset, change our perspective. And from a perspective of relationships, our spouses, our significant others, parenting to our children, coaching, mentoring, as I coach speakers to become better public speakers or anybody, the best analogy is, let's say this side of my hand is painted white, this side is painted blue. What color is my hand? White, blue. Who's right? You all are, depending on your perspective. So in order for us to communicate at the deepest, most empathetic levels of total trust and understanding, we must be willing to come around on the other side of the hand. We must be willing to come around and see the other person's perspective and humble ourselves and actually acknowledge, yes, it is white or blue, which turns every single argument about who is right into an agreement on what is right so we can move forward together. I wish the politicians in Washington, D.C. understood that, because we could heal America.
I love it.
I wish we could catch on. So as I started to figure out a way to get better, the third most frequently asked question, the answer to that is really the essence of who I am and my message for everyone in every industry. I stayed paralyzed for 14 months because I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. And once we answer why, figuring out the how-to becomes clear and simple. So back full circle, why would you drive 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free? If you wouldn't, you can't be a speaker. It's not a calling. And it has to be a calling for you to be vulnerable enough to dig deep enough to figure out what solutions you can share with the world that will help someone else's heart heal, someone else's marriage heal, someone else's business heal. And I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. Once we answer why, figuring out the how-to becomes clear and simple. And so you don't think it's a rah, you can if you think you can recover from COVID. You know, real estate market's kind of tanked lately. And so what do you say to the realtors? Just keep them fired up. You got to understand that after every storm, there's a rainbow. No matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future. But that's more rah. So physiologically, we know that when you only focus on the what and the how, you go to a real estate class and you understand the information. You got to get your insurance license. You only understand the information. You pass the test. You get your Series 6, your 63, or 65, whatever you have to do in the securities world. That's how to. That's lame. If you're only if you're only focused on the how and the what as a communicator, you're a transactional guy. If you're a speaker and you only focus on the how and the what, here are my slides. I got 116 slides. You sit there and shut up. I'm still gonna close past the sale. You're ready to sign the contract, and I'm like, now sit there, shut up. I still have 27 slides left on my presentation in my computer. How many salespeople do that? Reason leads to conclusions, but as emotion leads to action. So physiologically proven. When we only focus on the how and the what, we only engage the mind, we only engage the head, we only engage the brain. But when we add to that a passionate why and a compelling want, we connect the head with the heart.
Yep.
And physiologically proven, our blood pumps more rapidly, our brains fire, and our muscles engage. They magnify, which maximizes our performance. When you see an athlete get a second win, when you see somebody hustle, they have a reason to hustle because they know what the score is. When you hear stories about these heroic women, these petite, loving mothers who suddenly have the amazing Atlas-like strength to lift a car off of their little kid in an accident, and they go, oh my gosh, I have no idea how I did that. What we as leaders, what we as speakers, what we as coaches need to believe is that our calling is to help individuals access their hidden talent, to untap their hidden potential, to somehow reach into their heart and mind and soul and lift them up so they walk away saying, I know I can do this because you did it too. The purpose of a relationship is for everyone to leave saying, I like me best when I'm with you, I want to see you again. But why do people like us? It's because we've given them the vision, the hope, the roadmap. We've put gas in their Ferrari so they can drive at high speed. And we've given them permission to pull off and take a pit stop every once in a while. Make sure you fill back up your tank before you give more to others than you've given to yourself. And I haven't taken a breath for 77 minutes, but that's my answer. And it's a comprehensive answer of how did I become a speaker? As I started to get better, I was asked to speak because people wanted my message.
Yeah.
And in the speaker's world, I created what I call the speaker's triangle. It's in my book, Speak Like a Pro. It's also in my book, Story Selling. And it's an inverted triangle on purpose because it creates the funnel. And every person in this world craves the answers to 3 questions: one-on-1, 1-on-12 in a corporate board meeting, 1 on 20,000 in an arena. Question number 1, why should I listen to you? Have you done it, and are you currently doing it? It's the credibility piece. And it turns decades into days if we can find someone who knows what we want to know, who's smarter than we are, and who can teach us. Question number 2, can I do it too, with my past, with my weaknesses, with my limitations, and with my strengths? It's the possibility piece. So as speakers, if we stand up and everybody leaves me impressed with me, I blew it. Well, that was good. I got an adrenaline rush, standing ovation. Actually, last speech was great. They were doing the wave and naming the future children after me. It was pretty cool. Now, that's not what we do. Remember, you don't prepare a speech, you prepare yourself to speak. But if I dazzle the audience, if I rise to the occasion and prepare and know my audience and connect and engage, and they leave impressed with themselves, bam, he shoots, he scores. That's the purpose of bringing in a third-party validator for any company. That's the purpose of speaking, to change people's lives and give them the methodology and the structure that they can do to structure their story so that it's in a meaningful, organized way. And then the reverse triangle, which is the metaphor, the funnel. If you answer question number 1, credibility, if you answer question number 2, can I do it too? Then it begs the question, how do I do it? What's your system? Give me the plan of action. How do I get from where I am to where I want to be? And that's the usability piece. So as a speaker, I was able to quantify the life lessons I learned from my recovery from my paralysis, because everybody needs to be an expert in resilience. And as I started to be asked to speak, it was amazing how I was asked to speak more and more. And people ask you don't have to pay to play. That's bogus. If you have something to say and you figured out how to say it right, and you have a message that's larger than yourself, you need to polish your presentation skills. And I just parlayed it into a full-time deal. And Zig Ziglar heard me, took me under his wing. I became his protege, sponsored me in the National Speakers Association. Been doing it for 4 decades, and the rest is history.
That was my question. When was this? So like 40 years ago, huh?
1982.
Okay. So guys, longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've been alive since 1985. So put that in perspective.
Yeah, so I'd like to start this podcast over again and just make it for the geriatric ward here in Scottsdale, because there's at least 962 old people who can relate to me.
So how young are you?
That's very funny. I'm 60. I'm 67.
67.
Yeah, I bend over to pull up my socks, and I think, what else can I accomplish? Well, I'm way down here. I go to bed healthy, and I wake up injured, and all I did was lay there. I didn't know sleep was going to hurt me. I'm starting to stretch at 2 a.m. in case something happens at 2 a.m.
Like, if you guys can see, like, Dan has so much energy and vibrance and life that you can kind of see why. Like, just the way his mind works. And it's kind of crazy when you were telling the story. I draw some parallels with you and I, which is really cool. Like, your identity was a professional athlete. Or was it semi-pro or was it professional?
Yeah, it was projected #1 draft pick by the Oakland Raiders.
Look at that.
Go Raiders, baby.
So-
in fact, they're so pathetic now. You and I could start for them next Sunday.
I'd probably die.
No, you wouldn't, because there's just a collective group of wusses. I don't understand. They have so many marquee players and they can't win. Let's not go there. I'll just no.
But athlete, lost his identity as an athlete, hit rock bottom. As you guys probably know, I used to be an athlete with bodybuilding. That was my identity. Everything I was my body, right?
Got it.
And I was so empty inside, searching for me when it was just superficial. It was what you see. There was no depth, right? Hit rock bottom and then started to work on myself. And then you talk about when you get on stage, making it about somebody else. If there's one person out there that can resonate with this message, it's worth it. And that's the one thing I had to learn when I spoke on stage. First time I did it, I was terrified. I'm sweating, like armpit stains. I get up there and I'm like, oh, what are people going to think? What are people going to think? It's about me, right? The second I start thinking, well, I've got so much knowledge I can give this person, that person, this person, that person. That person might change their entire life listening to it. That's when
Yep.
it's easy that when then you're in a flow state and then
got it.
you get off stage and you are at an all-time high. I get a high from speaking on stage
got
now. You know?
You seek to bless, not impress, but we get more out of it than they do.
Right. Right.
And you know what it does is it forces us, as I say, we got to be the same off stage as we are on stage, was my compliment to you. But to your point, if you're nervous before you speak, that means you think it's about you. But if you're excited before you speak, it means you know it's about the audience. And chemically, it's the exact same chemical in our brain, fear and excitement, nervousness and excitement. So all we have to do to change our state, to put us into the flow state, to become that servant leader, is to do exactly what you just said. You suddenly and instantaneously make it about the other person, and suddenly when you're prepared, you shall not fear.
That's crazy too, because you were talking about perspective, right?
Oh, yeah.
Easy to change perspectives. Hand white or the hand blue? Depends on what your perspective is, right? So when I used to play basketball in high school, I would get so nervous for a game, but I was excited. That's all it was. Ball went up, I was in the game, ready to go. I was just excited. It's that same feeling though. You get the little butterflies in your hands, like a little feeling in your gut. It's excitement. I'm not nervous, I'm excited. Same thing when I get on stage now. I get that same feeling, but I'm not nervous. I am excited to pour into these people.
Let's talk about that twilight, that tweak that changes everything in an instant. It's easier to act your way into positive thinking than it is to think your way into positive action.
Say that again.
It's easier to act your way into positive thinking than it is to think your way into positive action. So it's the action that creates the good feeling. It's not the good feeling that creates the action. It's not the sugar that makes the tea sweet. It's the stirring. It's the process. So I used to return kickoffs and punts. And the only time I ever made a highlight film of the season was when the cameraman focused in on me before the kick or the punt. And I'm fixing my pads. I'm flipping. I lose like 30 pounds of water weight before the dude even kicks the ball. But to your point, bro, the second I touched the ball, the nervousness went immediately into excitement, high performance, and never again for the entire 60 minutes of the game was I nervous.
Right.
So you think about what you just taught the world, bro. It's deep. The second you get the microphone, walking onto the stage for a Hall of Famer, walking onto the stage, you're still nervous. You're still human. You're like, man, I am fired up, but man, the second you grab the microphone, you can turn that nervousness, that fear, into focused energy, into excitement, just by changing your perspective in that moment. Trigger, the microphone in the hand, the trigger, open the stage, the trigger, bam, I'm here for you.
You just gave something so profound.
Think about, you triggered it, bro. If you're a realtor and you're driving around and you're nervous, I've never been a realtor. My sister's pretty high level. I don't know why I keep referring to that, but give me an example from the world other than athlete or speaker where if you understand the physiology of the mind, what we're discussing, which is a reality, that you can can go from nervousness to relying on your preparation. You can go from nervousness to excitement in the twinkle of an eye if you just have the right trigger and are willing to go there immediately by taking action, not by thinking about it. Do something right now, and that's what triggers it, is the action, not the thought. Do you agree?
100%, 1,000,000%, because I just realized that you did something that I've done time and time again after my first time I spoke on stage. And I was so nervous. But then when I got on stage and I started thinking, serve these people, I got really excited and I was in a flow state. And I started to think about it. I told you, basketball. I related it to that. Basketball, I was nervous. The ball went up, boom, flow state. That's the trigger, the ball. You said the same thing. Kickoff, you're nervous. The second that ball hits you, it's a trigger. Boom, good to go. You get on stage, you're walking up, you still probably get the butterflies, right?
Oh, yeah, because
everyone does. Every big speaker out there gets them. You touch that mic, that's the trigger. Go time. Guys, think about that. If you are trying to get on stage and start speaking, or if you've done it before, think of something that is a trigger that is related to sports, related to something else where you can flip that mindset, flip that perspective to, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. I'm excited to pour into these people and give them, you're up there for a reason. You're up there for a reason.
And I remember I used to do stand-up comedy in Ice House, Pasadena, Yuck Yucks in Toronto, Rush Street in Chicago, and a lot of the folks, the MCs would say, Clark, how do you get fired up? How do you get ready for the microphone when you're introduced to do stand-up comedy? And I said, I'm a man of faith. I drop to my knees and I pray to God that the drugs I took back in the 80s will start to take effect. And my career didn't last a whole long time because it didn't really have, I can't remember if it really worked or not, but it was a great idea. Perfect. Someone's taking notes as they're driving, like, wow, that's a secret. That's my trigger. There we go. Oh, my gosh. Brownies. I heard it on Burr's podcast. Yes.
You know what you touched on, too?
I hope not.
Some people are going to be like, I can't believe he said it. And I don't even know if you really realized that you said it. It was for a brief second. When you went up into, was it 17 miles?
Yeah, 17 miles. Yeah, 90,000
above the
feet.
earth.
Yeah.
You saw the curvature of the earth. So you're saying now the earth is not flat, right?
Okay, let's just talk about that for a second. It's a big deal, and I've got I'm speaking all over the world, and I got the little movie clips and everything. And this dear friend of mine, very wealthy philanthropist, Dan, we talked to my nephew. He's president of the Flat Earth Society. I'm like, really? There is one? He calls me. I talked to him for like an hour and a half. He's got all these mathematical algorithms, explanations, and he says, so what do you think? I said, I got pictures, dude. And he shut right up. I said, I got video. And he's like, whoa. And he's trying to explain. I'm like, no, dude, Photoshop. I got pictures. No, yeah, really.
That's Photoshop.
But I saw one of the greatest infograms the other day on social media. Had a picture of the solar system that we learned, that showed the actual photographs of all the planets that we've learned about in school. Saturn with its rings, and Uranus with its moons. And every single one of these photographs taken through a telescope show these planets as being round. And then in the infogram, there was a slab flat piece of whatever, and it said Earth. And the caption was, wow, that's awkward. These guys are idiots. I think you need to put an 800 number, not mine, but an 800 number for some counseling therapeutic place to get these folks to catch the vision.
The argument never makes sense to me.
Oh, my goodness.
It doesn't make any sense.
But just look at the photographs.
Yeah. But then you'll have the people say it's Photoshopped.
Well, yeah.
But here's the thing I don't get. Like, let's say this is the Earth, this table.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going to use a prop here. My sunglasses.
Okay.
My sunglasses, they're a plane flying to some other place, right? I'm taking a trip. If I get to the end, where do I go? I've heard someone say, well, there's a portal that loops you back around to the other side. I'm like, now we're talking about science fiction. What is this, right? So when you said the curvature of the Earth, I had to bring it up because there's a lot of people out there that will swear up and down the Earth is flat.
I saw it, and I teared up. And let's just bring a little bit of spirituality into this. I never really like to talk about religion. Religion's for those who are afraid to go to hell. Spirituality is for those of us who've already been there. You and I have some personal stories. But at 17 miles above the Earth's surface, Sir Richard Branson and Bezos, they went to a higher altitude than me, obviously. But their entire adventure from launch to landing lasted 11 minutes, and they only saw the curvature of the Earth for 1 minute. I was there for 5 hours, not as high. But when they landed, the superficial answers were, it changed my life forever. Magnificent. It was unbelievable. Even William Shatner, we're talking Captain Kirk. What did he say? It changed my life forever. And I'm like, that's so lame. I had to take some time, especially as a professional speaker and as a coach, to try and quantify what lessons I learned. And I just want to blow your listeners' minds for a second, because those who kind of shirk the opportunity to seek knowledge about a supreme being or a master organizer, I'm challenging them to do better research. Because when you see the curvature of the Earth, and I had an unobstructed view of Mother Earth, I teared up as an eyewitness to the words of Einstein, who said, although the concept of a supreme being and a master organizer is complex, we must embrace the mindset of a young child who walks into a large library and says, surely someone must have written all these books. And in that emotional environment, within minutes, I agreed that we're more than mere mortal beings living on a small planet for a short season. So if you'll allow me to really blow people's minds, as a speaker, the way my speaker fee kept going up was as I took my message deeper, as I became more vulnerable. People don't give a rat's wackazoodle if you and I have ever succeeded. They want to know, Devin Clark, did you ever fail? Dan, did you ever fall down, get knocked down? What did you do about it?
Right.
In football, we spend 99 yards trying to score a touchdown, and we only, we get into the end zone, and if we spend more than 15 seconds, we get penalty flagged for excessive celebration. So we've got to enjoy the journey. We can't just enjoy the destination. We've already heard that. It's about the journey. So let's just put in perspective the journey. My dad passed away, battled cancer. I've had 3 throat surgeries. I coughed so violently. I was hospitalized in the hospital with COVID. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
But I almost died. I was 30 minutes away from being intubated at ICU, which is a death sentence. I checked myself out of the hospital, pissed off everybody. I left with pneumonia. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going to figure it out. But I coughed so violently, I ruptured the blood vessels in my vocal cords, and it scabbed. And then I ruptured them again and scabbed over the scab, and then it turned into cancer. Diagnosed. So I've had 3 throat surgeries. Usually when I'm not this excited or animated, I can speak a little bit more clearly, and I still have a better voice. Right now I sound like a 1-900 number, which is, and off camera, I think that would be a way for you to make a lot more money if you just had your own number. Hi, this is Devin. Do you feel lonely? Do you feel that need to confess? Phone me, 1-900 stud muffin hunkerburn. So I'm not proud of my voice, but it is what it is. But it brought me to my knees as far as mortality, because the guy next to me in the room died, and it was the craziest experience, bro. And I've had so many people. You ask me how young I was, how old I am. There's a lot of folks my age who have just died. I filled in for a speaker. This buddy calls me the other day. Huge real estate conference in Florida. Huge. He's the #1 real estate coach in the world. I won't mention him by name. Calls me up, hey, Clark, will you do me a favor? Our speaker died. He's 54, in perfect shape, unbelievable, very, very well-known coach.
Tragic or?
No, he died of a heart attack.
Just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. So I fill in for him. I fly in there. Obviously, I'm not going to charge him a speaker's fee to see. So it's been on my mind. It's been on my mind for a few years. since I went up into space, because when we landed, this is where I got really philosophical and a bit theological, if you will. That doesn't offend anyone. I'm just challenging people to figure out your purpose in life, because we're here for a reason, guaranteed, and things happen for a reason. But it's our responsibility to determine what that reason is, which makes my football injury one of the best things that ever happened to me. Don't misunderstand me. Not my paralysis, but who I became because of it. Like I said before, I thought I was a football player, but when in reality, that's just what I did, not who I am as a man.
Yes.
And when we identify ourselves in terms of what we do instead of who we are, we become a human doing instead of a human being. Unacceptable significance is what we seek. So as when we landed from this 5-hour adventure with my new perspective on life and love and living and laughter and just going for it, being present in the moment. Most people, they've heard from someone, you got to be present. Put your phone down, be present. Well, what if your present sucks? Then they go to the past. I just had my high school reunion. Give me a break. So many guys, Uncle Rico, talking about throwing that 40-yard.
You see that mountain over there?
Yeah, exactly. Throwing that 40-yard touchdown pass way back in 1862.
Yeah.
And finally I stopped and I said, guys, let's talk about now.
Yeah.
I said, all you guys are dragging me back into the past, and it's like you're trying to rob my old house, and I don't live there anymore. So as a speaker, I'm a songwriter, I like the little hooks. And they said, well, teach us, Dan, what do you mean? And I said, the number one limiting belief that holds us back from accomplishing our goals is focusing on a future outcome, when in reality, all we have to do and what we need to do is stay present in the process, present now. And that one-liner is like ordering an Uber ride that requires that you enter in your current location. And if you lie about where you are, the directions don't work.
So good.
So I'm 17 miles above the Earth's surface. I'm tearing up. I'm philosophical. I'm caught in emotion and that spirituality with my sense of humor going, you know what? If we're the only ones here, this sure is a lot of wasted space. And we land. So I took the time in quiet moments to quantify what I learned, and this is what I came up with. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm just plugging it so that I can prick your conscience, and all of your listeners, all of your viewers can just contemplate the deeper side of life. When we landed, what occurred to me is everything we can take with us when we die, and everybody will, the old will, the young may, everything we can take with us when we die, I had aboard with me on that aircraft. Our education. We don't learn to know, we learn to do. We already talked about that. Our character. The information. I happen to believe that whatever degree of intelligence and knowledge and information we gain in this life will rise with us in the next. You don't have to agree. I'm just planting seeds. I believe that with all my heart. Second thing we take with us when we die is our character. How do we develop our character? Through tests. We learn more as athletes from losing than we do from winning.
Right.
And as a professional bodybuilder, as someone who really understands the finely tuned message of how do you build your self-worth, you're an expert more than anyone I know. When you go into the gym, you create discomfort on purpose. Today, I will put a little bit more weight on the bar. Today, I will spend 1 more minute on the pre-core. Today, I will stretch myself for flexibility just 1 more minute longer than I've ever done. And then the ironic insanity is when people leave the gym, they suddenly want Princess parking in every store and I mean in every mall and Princess Park and sales in every store. They want a 90-degree day with a little breeze blowing over their shoulder. Woe me, I don't want any challenges. I don't want any stress. I have too much anxiety. Give me a freaking break. I don't even know how to spell anxiety. That's a lame word that labels, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to cowboy up. My mental toughness is freaking weak, and I've got to have a crutch. I got to have a word to use. No, what we got to do is fire up, and when your why is bigger than your why not, I guarantee if your new little baby is in a car accident and the minivan bursts into flames, your why is bigger than your why not. And you're going to run over there and you're going to save your little baby who's in 2 lanes away because you're driving with your significant other home. When your why is bigger than your why not, you're not like, I'm too stressed. I can't save her.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't understand. I have so much anxiety. I can't do it. Yes, you freaking can. if your why is clarified and your why is bigger than your why not.
Well, first thing, I would never have a minivan.
I just wanted to yank your chain because that's not a chick magnet, and I know you wouldn't have one, but
I would never have a minivan.
I know, but I can just see you cramming 4 children into a 2-seated Porsche, man. They're like, Devin, come on, man. Don't be so
it's got a
selfish.
back seat.
I know, that's very cool. Yeah.
But guys, he just gave you so many nuggets. There was one that just stood out to me was at the high school reunion.
Yep,
You got all these people talking about the past,
you got it.
right? Take a look around you guys. The people you associate most with, what are they talking about most? Are they talking about the past? Remember when we used to do this? Remember when that happened? Remember when me and you used to hang out at your mom's house when this happened? Who cares? If you are hanging around people that are always talking about the past, you're hanging around the wrong people. You need to be around people that are present now and looking towards the future. What can we build? What can we grow? What can we develop? What can we do that's going to help other people? Those are the people you need to be hanging around.
You got it.
Period. And be present. One thing I've learned over the last 10 days, because I've got a little baby girl that's 10 days old. I had another daughter when I was 22. She's 16 now. I blinked and she's 16.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
I'm telling you, I'm literally thinking like, holy crap. I remember giving her first bath like it was yesterday when I gave my new daughter her first bath. And I'm thinking, I don't remember all the little moments, staring at her face, seeing the little facial expressions she made. I wasn't there. I was there, but I wasn't there. I was somewhere else. I was thinking about, I got my second job tomorrow. I got this, I've got that. I'm at a point in my life now where I can just be there.
You got it, brother.
And it has been the last 10 days. You might be able to, because you know me, I might look a little tired right now.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I haven't gotten much sleep, but it's been so worth it.
Yep. And you brought back an interesting memory. When I was born, I was so ugly, the doctor slapped me, and then he went out in the hall and slapped my dad. So it wasn't the same experience for my parents that you just had, but I can relate. So they don't think I'm scatterbrained. 4 things we can take with us when we die. First one, education. Second one, character. I believe that our character and leadership development matters, and we learn through our tests, we learn through our struggles, and whatever degree of character and leadership development we attain in this life will rise with us in the next. Third thing we can take with us is our conviction. What do you believe and why do you believe it? About everything, about your body. You know, one of the reasons why I just deeply love and respect and admire you so much, Devin, is because you're the whole person. How many wealthy people do we know that are just sloshes? They've never taken care of their body. How many bodybuilders do we know who have no money and no relationships? It's just all about them in the mirror.
That was me 7 years ago.
I'm telling you, and so the goal is to be that whole person. You know, any male can be a father, but it takes a special man to be a dad. It's figuring out a way to make sure we believe that we deserve this in our lives. In the law of attraction, we don't attract who we want; we attract who we are. We attract what we believe we deserve in our lives, income, relationships, whatever. Which brings me to the 4th thing we can take of this when we die. Did our lives matter? You know, my book, The Art of Significance, Achieving the Level Beyond Success, it's my flagship book out of the 37, and published by Penguin Random House. And when I finished my book tour, the number 1 frequently asked question was, what's the difference between success and significance? And it reminded me of a conversation I had with one of my football teammates. He's drafted into the NFL in the 2nd round by the Philadelphia Eagles. After 2 years with the Eagles, he's traded to my Oakland Raiders. After 4 years in the league, playing at the highest Pro Bowl status, one day he walks out of practice, quits never to play again. Why? He loved being a football player, but he hated playing football. He got what he thought he wanted. He loved the celebrity perks and the fame and fortune that allowed him to live this life called successful, competing against others, focused on what matters most at the moment. Nice house, nice car, nice income, power, fame, fortune. But because his inner voice and his true purpose in life, because he had a greater and deeper, more important calling, and he woke up, because his inner voice and his true purpose in life was misaligned with who he was and what he was doing at the time, he would never live a life of significance, and he would die with regrets and with his intentions and music still in him. So bottom line, Successful people, we can look around in every industry, successful people get what they think they want, focusing on what matters at the moment. But those of us who are striving to live lives of significance actually want what we get by focusing on what matters most, which is what lasts the longest. So you think about the transformation that you've engaged in, you've created. It didn't just happen to you. You figured out a way consciously to say, wait a minute, 7 years ago, I was focused on taking really good care of only one aspect of the total Devin Burr man, baby boy man that you were born to be. What about the other things? And like you said, you're at the top of the world and you're still empty inside. And I help so many athletes, coach them to be speakers, whatever. But the process is to get their story, and they're super vulnerable, and they share all these dark sides of fame and fortune. They're making millions and millions of dollars, and at the end of the day, they have no relationships.
Yeah,
They're just shallow. They haven't figured out a way to balance out their lives. So to your point, you brought up a Jim Rohn quote. You didn't really say it, but Jim Rohn is the first one. He created it, and I think I'm the only speaker who ever gives him credit. He said, we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. So I add to that, which means if you hang around with 5 broke people, you're going to become the 6th. If you hang around with 5 negative, whining, blaming, complaining people, you're going to become the 6th.
Yep.
If you put a hard-to-catch horse in the same field with an easy-to-catch horse, most of the time you end up with 2 hard-to-catch horses. And in the human experience, if you put a healthy child in the same room with a sick child, most of the time you end up with 2 sick children. So I checked myself out of the hospital. I couldn't get better in a hospital. I'm not slamming medicine.
Right.
But we got to surround ourselves with people. And in order to do that, we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings, even online.
Yep.
That's why this podcast is so powerful. But let's take it one step further. Okay, Clark, we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. The other day I did this huge podcast. And I started thinking, okay, so what else am I leaving on the table? What haven't I dissected? What haven't I taken a deeper dive on? And I don't know anybody who's taken the time to identify, okay, what do those 5 people need to do? Who are those 5 people? What value do they bring in your life? So you leave them saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. Here's my 5. I highly recommend it. You find 2 people, kind of iterated it earlier on. Find 2 people who know more than you know, who you know have traveled the road before, who have the skill set, the mindset, the attitude, the experience to condense the decades into days and literally mentor you and teach you on exactly what you need to do. Here are the steps. The third out of the 5 is someone who's a spiritual guide who reminds you about integrity, commitment to service before self, commitment to excellence in all you do. I was a Boy Scout who holds us to the fire, who we love and respect so much that they could call us at 2 a.m. and say, you know what, man, you're screwing up your marriage. Hey, dude, I saw you in the park. You don't want that reputation. Do you understand what you've been saying? Why did you tell an off-color joke at work? Come on, dude, you're better than that. You're better than that. And the Boy Scout oath: trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. That's a list I have on my wall. And every day I ask myself at the end of the day, was I trustworthy? Playing golf? Did I kick my ball? Did I take it out of the divot when it's a competitive, money tournament, whatever the case may be? Was I 100% trustworthy? Loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. What a great report card.
100%.
And then the 4th person is someone who will challenge you. Devin, man, you're looking good, bro. You're killing it. You're making money. You're a new dad. You're just awesome. But I know you got one more rep in you, dude. You're leaving something on the table, man. You could have. I mean, look at me. You say you're tired. You don't look tired. I would never throw you under the bus, but I can see it. But the reason why you're tired is because your why was bigger than your why not.
Yeah.
Anybody else could have used an excuse. Look what you're doing. You had somebody in your life. You have somebody in that hospital room, in that birthing center. You have someone, I'm not going to say something, that challenges you to rise to the occasion.
Yep.
to be better today than you were yesterday, not because it's expected by others, but because it's demanded of yourself. So one of those 5 people, the fourth has to be someone that we love and respect to the degree where we are not offended when they challenge us. Wait a minute, Devin, you are awesome, but you can get better. And it's not mind your own business. It's like, well, I'm doing my best. No, it is not enough to say I will do my best. We must succeed in doing that which is necessary. Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. That's why we train and prepare and practice so hard. Mm-hmm. Pressure is not something that's naturally there. It's created when you question your own ability. When you know what you've been trained to do, there's never any question. So in life, there's no mistakes, only lessons. So pain is a signal to grow, not to suffer. Once you learn the lesson the pain is teaching you, the pain goes away.
So good.
And that means and validates the second way that in life, there's no mistakes, only lessons. And the fifth person is someone you can actually mentor and serve. I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for Zig Ziglar. And the introduction I had to Zig Ziglar, I'm down, I'm suicidal, lost my career, I'm gimping, my eye drooped, I had loss of speech, I couldn't talk anymore, my right side's paralyzed, my arms dangled helplessly at my side. I was a hot mess. And the vice president of the University of Utah, who loved me, he was a big fan, he was concerned, I was a typical male, I got this handled, crawled into a cave, stopped talking to people, everybody's worried about me, and I was suicidal. And one day he brings to me by a cassette tape to listen to by a, quote, motivational speaker by the name of Zig Ziglar. I'd never heard of Zig Ziglar. I thought, whoa, his mom ran out of names. So out of curiosity, I plugged the tape in, I listened to it, it changed my whole life. 45-minute speech, all I remember is one story. That's all it took to resonate with me, connect my head with my heart, and give me that oomph, that kick in the butt that I needed to just get up and do something else. And that brings up what you're talking about, that you don't have to focus on the future. You need to know where you're going, but you've got to focus in on right now and be present in the moment. And here are the 2 analogies. I ride a Harley, and I can leave Los Angeles, California, and drive to New York City and not see New York before I start, and simply make sure I get on the right road. And once I'm on the right road, don't worry about it, because my headlight on my Harley, my Road King, turns on, and it projects 150 feet in front of my bike. So no matter what the weather is, it can be darkness, it can be light, it can be rain, it can be windy, I can go cross country 3,000 miles on my motorcycle 150 feet at a time, which means you don't have to see the top step to start climbing the staircase. You only have to see the bottom step and identify and quantify the value in taking one more step. And if you take one step with value and create value, leave value, bring folks along, one step after one step, eventually you get to the top of the staircase and you've made your dream turn into a reality. It's pretty simple.
I'm blown away. I gave that exact analogy maybe 2 episodes ago. Darlene Santore. Shout out, Darlene. Love you, Coach Dar. I gave that same example.
No hablo español, mi amo gordo grande.
You can go from California to New York in the dark as long as you can see the 100 feet in front of you. That's all you need to see, right? So right now is what matters. Know where you're going, but focus on now. So crazy. I gave that same example.
No, it's so true, and it's universal, and it's beautiful, And again, we have to put the emphasis on taking action. When you can take action, you take the nervousness of returning a kick to the action step the second you touch the ball. It's so simple and yet so profound.
Something you said about the 5 people you should have, right?
Yep.
Like you're the sum of the 5 people you associate with most. You're saying all these people should be this, that, and the other. I'm putting myself in the listener's shoes, right? Because I say the same thing all the time. You are a product of your environment. If you hang around with a bunch of out-of-shape people, you're going to be out of shape. If you hang around with a bunch of broke people, you're going to be broke. That's all there is to it. Everyone, they're thinking, well, that's good, Dan and Devin. I get it, but like, how do I get around these people? Here's what you guys have to do. You have to be worthy of being around those people.
I love it.
You have to be worthy of it. And how do you become worthy of it? Work on yourself. So how often do you study yourself? How often do you study your habits, what you do throughout the day? When you wake up, perfect example is I'm looking for a new car right now because we just had a baby. I've got an SUV. It's a smaller SUV, so it's a little cramped in there. So looking for a bigger SUV. I'm looking,
Minivan, baby. Let's all vote minivan for Devin. I want to see
Never.
him in downtown Scottsdale minivan.
I will never have a minivan ever. So
Trick it out, man. Low ride it. Come on, baby. Put on some rims, baby.
never. I'm looking at SUVs, and I know everything about these SUVs. I'm studying these SUVs, right? So I can make the right decision. Most people don't understand how much I've worked on me. A lot. I've worked on me so much. That's why I've gone from bankrupt in 2016, edge of taking my own life, heartbroken, like rock bottom, living in a little 10 by 10 bedroom with no bed. I had a mattress on the floor. Full-time single father. I went from that in 2016 to now sitting with you, multi-millionaire, tons of passive income, great relationships, an amazing daughter, an amazing wife. How did that happen? It didn't happen by chance. I worked on me a ton. And because I worked on me, my value was higher. I can start getting around these people that have more value than I do. They pull me up even higher. So guys, what Dan is saying is so true. You have to get around people that are high level. But how do you do that? You have to become high level. The great thing is there's iPads, there's cell phones, there's computers where you can go on YouTube and you can learn anything.
Yep. It's up. So I highly recommend. I've read one book a week for the last 16 and a half years. I'm really proud of that. So one of my favorite books that launched my thought in a different direction was James Clear, Atomic Habits. I recommend it.
Such a good book.
But the entire premise on every page is that you can increase and improve your overall performance if you just improve 1% a day, 1% at a time. So in terms of time, let's talk. Today, you've never been this old before. And today, you'll never be this young again. So right now matters and every right now matters, which means, as I quoted before, no matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future. You can't always control what happens, but you can always control what happens next. So in terms of time, there's 1,440 minutes in every day, and 1% of that is 15 minutes. That's it. So what could you accomplish? How could you change your stars? How could you make yourself more valuable in the marketplace? How could you work on you if you were just willing to wake up 15 minutes earlier than you normally do and spend 15 minutes in spiritual meditative thought, 15 minutes more in the gym so you take better care of yourself, you have more energy, you're focused on nutrition, 15 minutes more in the community, which is the perfect lead generation, visibility, service before self. 15 minutes, everybody can do that.
100%.
And the rule of 72 is two things. Financially, you divide the interest, that the return on your investment by the percentage of your return on your investment, and see how long it's going to take you for you to double your money. We know the rule of 72.
Right.
But the other rule of 72 is that if you work on yourself 1% every day, in 72 days, you can become twice as good as you were when you started. Teaching yourself to play the guitar, becoming a violin virtuoso, double your income just based on doing 1% more every day, this many more phone calls, these many more lunches, this many more. 72 days. If you can't focus in on 1%, you can only do 0.5%, then you double that. You can actually become twice as good as what you're doing, twice as knowledgeable, twice as skilled, twice as proficient, twice as wealthy, 1% every day. And if you can't do 1%, then you double that, 144 days.
Or do a 0.5%.
You got a
7.5
7.5%.
minutes.
Exactly. See, whatever you have to do, but you can do it if you take action like we're talking about.
And the one thing that I always fall back on is I cannot stand when people say, I can't do that.
I agree.
It's the worst thing you could say, because if I can do it, you can do it. If Dan can do it, you can do it. If someone else has done it, it's proof it's possible.
You got it.
Period. Such an amazing book, Atomic Habits. I need to revisit that one. But one that just popped into my mind that I've read is The Miracle Morning. Have you read that? It kind of talks about what you just said, where 15 minutes, waking up a little bit early, you're not going to be more tired, getting 15 minutes less sleep. It talks about an hour. Okay, so if you wake up an hour early, you work on yourself for that first hour. You do that for enough time, you're going to change your entire life. And that's what I did. In 2020, I read that book and I was like, yeah, I can wake up an hour earlier. So I started waking up at 3 a.m. I was getting up at 4 already.
Yeah.
Started getting up at 3. And part of that book says, when you go to bed, like let's say I went to bed at 10. If I'm thinking the last thing I go to bed is, oh, I got to get up at 3. I'm going to be so tired. Guess what? I'm going to be so tired when I get up at 3. But if I go to bed at 10 o'clock and I say, I'm going to be rejuvenated, I'm going to have so much energy. When I get up at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be ready to go. Let's go. That's how I'm going to be at 3 o'clock.
You got it.
So you wake up early and you have this system in place where you just work on yourself. So that's what I do every morning. I wake up. It's been harder now, I'll be with the daughter, but wake up, I meditate, I go to the gym. Haven't been able to do that yet, but I have a Stairmaster at home, so I'm still doing that. I read, and that takes about an hour longer. Worked on myself, and it's still super early before anyone else has even gotten up.
Okay, so that's brilliant. I think we should talk about that. So I have a routine. Everybody, they flatter me, Clark, have you written 37 books, blah, blah, blah. And that's the formula. You wake up before anybody else demands your time. Children, spouse, emails, business, whatever time that is.
So it's quiet.
So I live in the mountains of Utah. It's my primary residence. I live here in Arizona about half the year. And when the snow comes, I realized I ain't going to get in my car and drive through a snowstorm to go to the gym in the morning. So I put a really nice gym in my house. And then I added a cold plunge. You know, one of my dearest friends, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, professional wrestler, hooked me up. So I have a cold plunge here in Arizona at our place and a cold plunge in my place in Utah. So 5 a.m. regardless. I could go to bed at 2 a.m. I wake up at 5 a.m. And my alarm is a very unique alarm, so it's different than my ringtone or anything else. I know exactly when that pops up. And if my feet don't hit the floor, if I'm not in my gym by 5:05, I've already talked myself into liposuction and a tummy tuck. I'm like, I don't need this. And the reality is discipline is so much more powerful than motivation. Because if you're disciplined, you don't have to be motivated.
Right.
You can't always be motivated, especially using your analogy and with the tired, 10 days with a new babe in the world. And so what we have to do is stay religiously focused on what are we going to do. And when you throw in that cold plunge before I exercise, that's the test of mental toughness, because our cold plunge is at 42 degrees and I squat my body in there for 6.5 minutes. My wife has not missed a day for over 400 days religiously, and she stays in there for 8 minutes and then goes to yoga. So when we rendezvous back in our home here in Arizona or in Utah, we rendezvous at about 6:30, maybe 7, and she's already done her deal and I've already done my deal. And with that cold plunge, it changes the whole day. A cold plunge will give you a 7-hour dopamine rush. And if you let your body warm up by itself without putting on, blankets or whatever, you actually burn 800 calories. It's the most powerful natural weight loss program on the planet, the cold plunge. But the mental toughness required to do that is so extraordinary. And that's why I want to put this out, because you inspire me, bro. And this is what everybody needs to know. And it's probably the most profound thing I could say. 2 quick stories. Let's say Devin and I are roommates in college, and we collectively agree to wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym and push each other to our ultimate capacity and potential as a human being. And then we leave the gym and we go into the library and we push ourselves to study and prepare for the exams of the day and to make ourselves more academically sound. But all we've done is made ourselves accountability partners. And I'm doing it for you and you're doing it for me. And that's just the weakest thing I can ever explain. And everybody's talking about find an accountability partner, find a gym rat, find a find a fitness friend. Bogus. Here's my point. That's cool. Great. But if you wake up every morning at 5 a.m., regardless if I do or not, and you go to the gym and you push yourself, and then you go to the library and push yourself regardless if I do or not, that's who you really are. That's your true nature. In country music, we learned that no matter where you go, there you are. You can surgically remove the stripes from a tiger, and it's still a tiger.
Right.
So at some point, like you said, you read a book, it was your trigger. You listen to a podcast, it's a trigger regardless. You hang around with the right people, it was a trigger. we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings. Well, to your point, in order to associate with extraordinary human beings, we must first be an extraordinary human beings. We don't attract who we want, we attract who we are. It makes sense. And as you work on yourself and as you become the very best version of yourself, you create your true nurture, you create your true nature. And it's exactly like an author. So when I create a character, so many of my stories, everybody says, are all your chicken soup stories true? I'm like, absolutely, because they're true to principle. And if you're Christian, we don't really know if Jesus' parables were true or not. Who cares? It was a Jewish tradition at the time of Jesus where so many of the rabbis, so many of the teachers, so many of the educators used parables to teach. It wasn't his idea. He just became a real good expert at that. We don't know if his parables were true, but he taught true principles, so the power of his story still emerges. Mm-hmm. So when we start thinking about stories and we start putting ourselves in positions of this and that, we need to make ourselves so extraordinary that people want to be around us so that they can tell stories of how we serve them. So it's not just working on ourselves, it's what could I do for you? How could I help you? How could I serve you? And from my experience, the best way for me to say thank you to somebody like you who already has it all, and if you don't have it, you'll just go buy it. You don't have to wait for Christmas. Is to do something for your spouse or to do something for your little girls. That's the best way to say thank you. It's always about service before self, and that will endear you to me on a completely different level. Just food for thought. So, what's your true nature? Who are you really? Are you the same off stage as you are on stage? It starts to reiterate everything we've talked about on this podcast. Mm-hmm. But the second analogy is even better. It's not an analogy, it's a story I've told for years. I'm walking through the mall with one of my buddies, and somebody bumps into him and he spills his cup of coffee all over the floor. I said, what happened? He said, I spilled my cup of coffee. I said, no, you didn't. He said, what? I said, you didn't spill your cup of coffee, you spilled what was in your cup. Had you had tea in your cup, you would have spilled tea. Had you had water or orange juice in your cup, you would have spilled water or orange juice. We can only spill what's in our cup. Who are you? If somebody squeezes you and you have stress or anxiety or pressure, so-called pressure, what's going to come out? Well, if you're angry, if you're negative, and the economy bumps into you, COVID bumps into you, a personal relationship goes south, someone screws you over, someone betrays you, a business deal goes out of control, or somebody's dishonest and embezzles money from you, and you're negative, what spills out is anger, intolerance, woe me, you don't understand. This is the hand I've been dealt. And then we start hearing all the woe me's about white privilege and everything else, and we can bring out the facts that it's not white privilege. Most of the Asians are getting the high-level jobs now because they're better in math and science and engineering and technology.
AI is going to take all those jobs soon.
You got it. Yeah. AI privilege. I mean, I can't wait for that to hit the freaking news. Let's just be reality. I don't want to get emotional or flip and bring this or that. Let's just talk turkey. Come on. We're intelligent, logical people. So what we have to understand is if you're angry and intolerant and woe me, it's your choice.
Right.
So if you're negative and something bumps into you that's negative, what spills out is you. But if you're positive and someone bumps into you, the economy bumps into you, your relationships go south, what spills out is forgiveness, love, understanding, compassion. Oh my gosh, I've spilled on my pants before. I can easily take them to the cleaners. It's going to be okay. It's the story of the little girl. She walks through the white carpeted living room of their brand new home, and she trips and spills her cranberry juice on the carpet. And she's crying because she's afraid, and her mommy comes up and says, it's okay, we can get you another glass of cranberry juice. It's the communication, it's the young mother who's on the phone, and somehow her little 3-year-old son manages to open the front door and wander out to the curb, and it's the busiest street in their neighborhood, and cars are whipping by and taxis. And she looks out the window and sees her son. She drops the phone and frantically sprints out the front door and gets to him just before he steps out off the curb into oncoming traffic. And she hugs him and then puts him at arm's length. And she says, Devin, how many times have I told you don't go by the curb? And with tears in his eyes, he says, Mommy, what's a curb? We got to learn to communicate.
Right.
It's the story of Steve Covey, my buddy. My girlfriend's dad was his first cousin living in Utah. And so I used to have breakfast and lunch with them way before 7 Habits was published. And he told me a story about judgment, about perspective about perception I've never forgotten. And it eventually emerged in one of his books, and it became pretty famous. He said he's riding the business train from Manhattan, New York, up to Stamford, Connecticut. And I used to have one of my 6 offices in Stamford. So I'd been on that train many times, about a 45-minute commuter. And every man and woman who gets on that train gets on and opens up their computer and starts to feverishly work so they can finish their work before they get home and they can be a full-time spouse, full-time significant other. And there's only one stop to stop. This young father gets on it with 2 young kids, and they immediately start running around the car, climbing up on the benches, making all kinds of noise. And Stephen Covey, being Stephen Covey, he feels like it's his responsibility to say something. He says, "Excuse me, sir," and he kind of snaps him out of that twilight zone. And he said, "Your children are disrupting everything. We're trying to get some work done." And Covey says, and the man looks at him and tears just start to come down his cheeks. And he says, "I am so sorry. I'm just coming home from my wife's funeral. I've got these 2 little kids and I don't know what I'm going to do." Prejudgment. So those intangible qualities we have to work on. Create a true nature. Who do you want to be? Who do you emulate? I've used this experience so many times in my speeches, Devin, where I say, I want you to think for a moment about a person that you absolutely admire, that inspires you. Number 2, after you've focused in on that person, I want you to think of the qualities that he or she possesses that makes you admire him or her. Number 3, ask yourself, which of those qualities do you possess? And if not, why not? If you admire them so much, when are you going to pull your head out and start focusing in on one day at a time, one character trait, attribute, quality at a time? What are you going to do? The other exercise I love to share is, if I had everybody pull out a piece of paper and write down the name of the person in the audience, in your team, on your team, in your company, who inspires you, is the most positive influencer in the room. Wouldn't that be cool if your name's on everybody's piece of paper? But how tragic it would be if I had you turn that piece of paper over and write down the most negative, cancerous person who brings everybody down, and your name appeared on anybody's sheet. And can you control that rep? Can you control that difference? Yes, you can.
Yep.
Reputation matters. And the illustration I would use is an Army sergeant phones up the commissary and he says, "What do we got?" Young private answers the phone. "We have 1,500 rifles, 10 tanks, and 1 fat-headed sergeant's Jeep." Sergeant says, "What?" Private says, "We have 1,500 rifles, 10 tanks, and 1 fat-headed sergeant's Jeep." Sergeant says, "Do you know who this is?" Private says, "No." He says, "This is the sergeant." Private says, "Whoa, you know who this is?" Sergeant says, "No." He says, "Good, bye-bye, fathead." That's funny. Let's focus on our rep. We can make a difference, dude. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, guys, you have to think about, everyone has the same qualities. Hear me out here. Everyone has the same qualities. It's a big statement, right? But you have anger inside you. You also have happiness. You have lust inside you. You've got the opposite of that. Everyone has these things. It's just, do you decide to bring those to the surface? Do you decide to work on those things? There's a law of polarity in the universe. There's an opposite to everything. So where there's a negative, there is a positive. It is factual. That's science. Down to a little atom has a positive and a negative charge. Period. So whatever someone that you look at and you idolize, man, they're so positive, they're so this, they're so that. So are you. You just have to bring that out, right? You have to focus on not being angry all the time. If you can be angry, guess what you can also be? Happy. It's possible. Again, if anyone has done it, it is proof that it is possible.
I love it.
Period.
Based on that, because there's an opposition in all things, you have to have darkness to appreciate the light. You have to have justice to appreciate mercy. You have to have sickness to appreciate health. You have to have death to appreciate the sanctity of life.
Yep.
And because the master organizer, the supreme being, I call him Almighty God, because he created us as humans with the free will agency to choose left or right, to choose how we're going to respond or react based on the opposition in all things. It's our choice. He instilled in every human being born into this world an inherent ability to discern right from wrong, truth from error. We commonly call this ability our conscience. Mm-hmm. And if that's true, that every person born in this world was born with a conscience, excuse me, our conscience will never fail us. Only our desire to follow it decreases as we continue to do the wrong thing. So the best analogy is if the three of us, let's just say your listeners, we're all collectively gathered in a live event to see Devin Burv live. And hopefully he'll throw me in, so I can, do my magic. And we leave this ballroom and we enter the same room together at the same time, and the room stinks so bad. We are repulsed to such a degree that our eyes start to water, our noses start to bleed, our ears are ringing, we're kicked into automatic gag reflex. Do you realize that if we stay in this smelly, stinky room for 5 to 10 minutes, it will no longer smell? We have become desensitized, and it's now the new normal. Isn't that what happened to our society, to our friendships during COVID? And everybody's like, I can't wait to rush back to normal. We can't wait to rush back to normal. And I would say, time out. What part of normal, what part of our past is worth rushing back to? Here's a chance for us to reset, not pivot.
Right.
Reset, and that's in the same terminology that you did in 2000 and whenever you had your epiphany 7 years ago. And as we're talking about, you can do it every day.
Right.
So with all due respect to my wife, over 400 consecutive days of cold plunging, yoga, doing no matter how she feels, no matter how late she stayed up helping with grandbabies, that doesn't have anything to do with today. Right. The alarm goes off at 4:30. Are you going to be in the cold plunge and then headed to yoga? Am I going to be in the cold plunge and working out?
So you guys do it first thing in the morning, right out of bed.
Right out of the bed.
That is next level. I do a cold plunge almost every day. I should do it every day, but I probably do it 5 days a week, I'd say. But I don't do it first thing in the morning. That is difficult because you're in bed. I keep my house chilly because I like being able to like snuggle up into blankets, right?
You got it.
I want to be, when I take the blankets off, I want it to be kind of cold. So you get out of this bed where it's all toasty and warm to go get into freezing cold water.
That's the mental toughness issue.
Yes.
I love it.
So I'm going to actually try that tomorrow. Hold me accountable.
Do it before you work out so that you have the maximum benefit of getting the pump.
Yeah.
Because what happens is if you exercise before and get in the cold plunge completely shrinks all of the inflammation in your body, including the blood flow that you've now pumped into your muscles, and you don't get the same impact as far as tearing your muscle down and then building it up, where we get the strength on the recovery day. So, yeah, you're the expert in that, but it's
cold plunging.
It's scientific, yeah. And I want to plug Gary Brecka. Everybody needs to Google him and follow him. Gary Brecka, Brecka, 10X Health. He's the one that really, I'm dear friends, did the blood work. We're way into all that, breath work every morning. I do the breath work on my jiggle machine. I don't know what the official name is. I should have looked at it so I could plug that piece of equipment. But I cold plunge, then I get on it, jiggles me for 10 minutes.
Oh, the platform.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. I should get the name.
Yeah, you can do stretches on it.
Oh, yeah, but I do my breath work on that.
That's cool.
And then I just step off, and there's my gym, and I just do my thing. And
I love it.
By the time I'm done, think about it. The night before I decide what podcast I'm going to listen to while I'm on the pre-core, that's how I start. I do the jiggle machine. And then the pre-core.
Pre-core is the stretch
for 30.
thing?
No, it's an elliptical.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because knees, I don't want to. I could ride a stationary bike, but that's kind of boring. I feel like a hamster on a treadmill. The elliptical gets my blood flow, and while I'm on the elliptical, it's exactly 30 to 35 or 40 minutes. It's dictated how long I stay on there based on the podcast that I choose to listen to. So I'm learning while I'm on the podcast, while I'm on the elliptical. I challenge you. That's why I would listen and re-listen to this baby. I think we've covered some interesting stuff, Devin. Thanks for
100%.
having me. But then I get off, and once I get off the podcast, then I turn on my classic rock and roll, and I'm just getting into Journey and all my favorite, the Beatles. The number one motivation of exercise is distraction, so it's okay. And I find if I'm trying to listen to a podcast while I'm counting the reps, it doesn't work for me because I'm a dumb football player. My cholesterol counts higher than my SAT scores, and anything past 9, I'm lost. I have to start all over again. It's just so frustrating. I don't know what to do. But there's meaning to your madness. I challenge everybody to do it. Just cut off point. And then while I'm perspiring and recovering from my perspiring, my perspiration is when I read. And I'm a fan of books. Audio, you can listen to an audio book on tape, obviously, while you're doing your pre-core, your treadmill, or whatever you need to do on your stationary bike. But I think you should buy a book. You should hold it in your hands. You should mark it. You should turn the pages over, earmark it, highlight it, and really study what you want to learn to better yourself. We called it University on Wheels, listening to audio tapes. But and do it all before anybody else wakes up. That's why I put a recording studio in my house. My creative juices might kick in at 11:30 at night. And again, I'm not going to get in the car and drive in.
You had me think of a funny idea. My creative juices always happen in the shower.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine if I just have like a little setup in the shower.
You could.
It could just so it doesn't go from the waist down.
I don't know, man.
You know?
You're thinking about your credibility, baby, you know. But
I guess it depends on what kind of shape I'm in if I did that. I gotta say tip-top shape.
You can seriously get waterproof anything and stick it in the shower. I've heard that from other people. I get a lot of my ideas in the shower about music.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want to record that because I sound like, a Rocky Raccoon who got hit by a bus. It ain't going well, but remember, we're talking legacy. When I die, I don't want somebody to find some archival recording of me in the shower. That ain't going to go over big. I'll lose all my credibility.
Man, I wish we could go all day long. We've already been going for like an hour and a half. So
you're such a dude, Devin. I admire you so much. You figured it out.
Thank you.
And that's what it's all about. Anybody can figure it out, to your point. Anybody, if they choose to, now's the time.
Right. Everyone has a choice of what you do at any second. I had a choice to not come here today.
Yeah.
I could have said, I'm really tired. Hey, Dan, let's reschedule, man. I don't know. I'm running on like no sleep. Let's reschedule this. But then that makes you think of me a little differently. Like, why is he rescheduling on me? If I say I'm going to do it, I'm doing it. So we have a choice with everything we do. When you put your pants on, do you put your left leg first or your right leg first? You have a choice of which one you do. But I don't even know which one I do. I think it's the right.
But you know what I do every day when I shave? I shave in a different way. I'm still a dry shaver. I always change it up. No water, shaving cream, but I just mean, with the razor, with the blades, with the.
Got it.
But I wasn't like you. I'm sure you had a beard. You had hair on your chest in the third grade. You were one of those guys that pissed us all off, man. And be like standing there ready for, to rebound a foul shot. And Devin puts his arms up and like, man, he's got hair under his armpits, man. And it distracted us, and then your team wins. But
How did you know?
I just know, man. Look at your grizz right now. That's just since 10 a.m. I know guys like you. You're like, I can't help it. I'm just a stud 24/7. But what we're talking about is real. We can actually choose to do whatever we want to do, no matter what our past been. We have a spotless future. I hope that's the message of this podcast, that you change, but you do it every day.
100%.
I could get on the podcast and say, yeah, I've been cold plunging for a long time. Well, Dan, did you do it today? No. When did you do it last? It was last April. No, I want to know, can I trust you right now? Are you currently doing what you're challenging us to do? And if not, don't smoke. It doesn't hold a lot of water. We got to freaking do what we say we're going to do. Okay, let me ask you a question. You're the interviewer. We're running out of time. Who motivates the motivator? Who has inspired you? Who inspired you to pull your head out? It wasn't just a book. It had to be circumstances in your life that basically said, okay, it's time.
Great question. I would say two people. One person is Templeton Walker. Shout out, Temp. I love you, dude. He's my original mentor in real estate. I was working full-time at Quicken Loans and just burned out on being an employee. And I saw him as this real estate investor. He's doing flips. He's doing wholesaling. I'm like, I want to do that. Because him and I had worked together before at Quicken Loans. I was his supervisor. So it's like, I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. So I go do a ride along with him. And I'm like, I can do what he's doing.
The teacher became the student.
Yeah, so look, he motivated the heck out of me. And then from there, I just started diving into personal development and so many different things. The second person is the most profound one, and the one that I would recommend everyone do the exact same thing. It's me. I motivate me. Ever since I started getting into life insurance, most people know I do infinite banking. That's specially designed whole life insurance policies. Everyone is guaranteed to die. There's no escaping it. We're going to pass away at some point. We just don't know when. So because of that, we don't know when the end date is, but it is there. I started thinking like, man, this is not going to last forever. This life will be done at some point. I don't know where I'm going to go, what's going to happen. I believe in God. Do I go to heaven? I don't know. It's going to end. So I started thinking of my future self. When I get to that end and I meet that future self, is he disappointed in me? Dude, you could have been so much more. You could have been so much more. Or do I meet him and he's like, bro, you did it. You rocked it. You became who you could have been. That's my motivation. That's who really puts me on a daily basis. That's the guy I'm chasing.
I love it. So,
and anyone can do that. Anyone can do that. Think about the end of your life. Put the end of your life now. Start thinking about it. It's going to happen. Who do you want to be at the end of that? Because on your tombstone, it says, mine's 1985 is when I was born. 1985 dash question mark. What did you do in the dash?
Yep, one of my favorite poems. Yeah. So think about it. Yeah, in those terms, the idea is for us to get on the right road and then just plug along and do whatever we need to do, obviously. Yeah, you inspire me, bro. You really inspire the world. I'm so proud. That's so cool.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate being on. I hope people got so much value from this. And guys, you can follow Dan at Dan Clark Speaks, right? That's what all the...
Not with an S. Dan Clark Speak on Instagram, Facebook. Dan Clark Speak.
Got it.
And my website is danclark.com. You know, if I can ever entice or influence you to want to become a better storyteller, I do my speaking coaching. It's a great program, Speak Like a Pro. You can find that on danclark.com too. But I just wanted to reiterate one thing. So I played football, and I was paralyzed when I was 22. And most people, you brought this up, or I want to point it out before we hang up. When you analyze the typical male, most men have their midlife crisis when they're about 55. And my definition of a midlife crisis, I don't know what it is for a woman, but a midlife crisis for a man is where the man you are comes face to face with the man you could have been. Mm. And I had my midlife crisis when I was 22. That's what shook my soul. And when you understand what you just said, focusing on your future self, but then reverse engineer, and literally let your future self be your current coach by asking yourself, distill it down to 5 years. That's my recommendation. Where do you want to be 5 years? What would your life look like in 5 years from now? And when you crystallize what that looks like and be materialistic right out of the chutes, it's the easiest thing to visualize. Where do I want to live? What's my dream home? What's my dream car? What's my dream family situation? My personal relationships? If you're 19, do you want to be married by the time you're 25? If you're 25 or 30 and you're still single, what do you have to do to find, where do you go fish to find the fish that you want to attract, that you want to catch into your boat? Because they're swimming in a specific pond and they're eating specific things. Are you attractive enough to attract that individual to notice you in the law of attraction through energy and vibration and frequency? All those things matter. But what you do, to your point, is you project 5 years out, not your whole life, and then reverse engineer and let that future coach, that future self be your current coach. And it's pretty easy to say, you know what? If I want a forever marriage right now, 5 years from now, I've got to be 100% honest and trustworthy with my wife, 100% fidelity. And then the 5 people we associate with the most, if I want to stay happily married, I'm going to hang around with guys who are happily married. Mm-hmm. Not guys who are dinking around, because that's not a good influence.
Right.
If I want to stop smoking, I've got to stop hanging around with guys who smoke.
Right.
Or guys who won't smoke around me, because they're still great bros, and I don't hold the judgment against them, but they just know they're sensitive to what I'm trying to stop.
Right.
And they're supportive of me. If we can seek people who inspire us to let go and to welcome, it makes life so much easier. And like you said earlier, if you're going to hang around with obese people, eventually you're going to be obese because you're going to start eating and drinking exactly what they do.
100%.
So,
well, guys, I'll add on to what Dan said there with writing your future self 5 years in advance. You start talking about what kind of car you want. Get specific.
yeah.
What color? Like, what does it have a sunroof? Does it have all the bells and whistles? Your wife that you're going to have, your husband, what color hair do they have? How tall are they? Like, we see in detail. Right now, I'm seeing you in detail. You're not just some blob, right? I see detail on you. So you have to see your goals in detail. I've said this on the show before, is I write my goals down as if they've already happened,
Yep.
but I write them in detail. Very, very specific on what I want. Not vague, because if you're vague, you're going to get vague results.
Absolutely.
Right? So much fun, man. Thank you for coming.
One last challenge here, people. I feel like we're 16. We're saying goodnight. I'm going to walk
You
to
hang
your
up.
car, and then you're going to walk me back to my door.
No,
or
you
whatever.
hang up.
No, yeah, exactly. I love you. No, I'm not going to say until you say it first. So I want everybody right now, to your point, this is the perfect place to end. Everybody listening and viewing right now, wiggle your right big toe. You haven't thought about your big toe the entire time we've been talking on this podcast, but because you focused right now on your right big toe, you felt it, you wiggled it. Okay, in this room, if I said, okay, if you can see the broad, this curtain behind me, actually in the color scheme, it's actually maroon. It's beautiful. It's velvet. I feel like I'm in, the Palace in Versailles. If I said to all of your viewers, focus on something on your screen that's red, everybody would obviously see the label on this Fuji bottle, and I hope you're getting some product placement endorsements from this, because that's on there for a reason. I haven't taken a sip because I wanted to make sure he gets all of his perks and all of his payback from Fuji water. I know how it works, bro. I should have brought, I should be wearing a polo shirt.
Fiji, start paying me weekly instead of bi-weekly, okay?
Yeah. But see how that goes? Focus on what's red. We just focus. We notice what we focus on, the law of attraction. To your point, bro, to detail your goals, to get so specific. Can I just share one last story?
Yeah.
So when I started making money, I decided I was going to treat myself to a sports car. And I land in Maui, Hawaii with my bride, and we're guessing I'm going to go to the hotel, and we pass by an exotic car rental place. And there's a red Ferrari out on the parking lot, and Magnum PI with Tom Selleck's on TV at the time. My wife's in love with Tom Selleck, mad crush. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go rent a red Ferrari for the day. I'm going to be Tom Selleck. Look out, baby, here I come.
Did you have a stash at the time?
No. They're so bad. So I pull in, the limo leaves us. And it was $150, that's how many years ago it was, for the whole day. So I lay down the money, we go out, and this surfer, long hair to his shoulders, we're walking to the parking lot to get the car, and he goes, hey, dude, you want me to pop the hard top coupe so it's a convertible? I'm like, yeah. So I get in the car and I go to start it, and the windshield comes up to here on me. I look like Mr. Potato Head. I can't even get it into first gear. I'm like, I pull out of the parking lot, bugs are flipping, hitting my face. I drove around the block, came back. I'm like, this isn't working, man. I can't buy this. I can't rent this car. He laughed, gave me a ride to the hotel. So then I started doing my research, and I discovered that I'm 6'5", and I was weighing about 235. I'd lost 41 pounds since I played ball. And the Carrera seats in a Porsche 911 actually are on the bottom of the floor, so my headroom worked, and I could fit in a Porsche. So I said, okay, that's my car. And as soon as I decided that was my dream car, I started noticing how many Porsches were on the road. And I'm like, wow, there's a dude at the end of the street. How does he afford that? Is he selling drugs? I'm like, I suddenly noticed things that had always been around me. I never saw them. I swear to you, I never noticed a Porsche. And then I got really clear. Okay, I want a charcoal gray Porsche GT3. I want a turbocharged with the whale fin on the back. And all of a sudden I started seeing charcoal gray GT3 turbocharged 911 Porsches. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And as I got more and more focused, I started noticing them. We notice what we're looking for. The big toe on the shoe is such a great analogy, the red on the Fuji bottle. And so the law of attraction isn't manifesting out into the universe some freaking ethereal want and desire, or Christians call it prayer, or Islam or Judaism praying, I'm a man of faith. That's not how it works. We pray to God to answer our prayers, and he answers our prayers through other people. That's my understanding. People we hang around with, are you looking? And what you're looking at will manifest itself. So here's the law of attraction 101. The people, places, and things that you want are already in your life. They're already on your path. You just aren't in the mood or haven't focused in or finely tuned your blur to notice them. So the people you need in your life right now to accelerate your career are already in your life. They're already in your path. You just have not noticed the big toe in your shoe yet, because we only see what we're looking for. Red on the bottle only. So what you said, I just wanted to make sure I could amplify how profound your wisdom was and your counsel as we say goodbye for the 7th time. That the goal is to turn off this podcast and take action right now, 15 minutes earlier than you normally wake up, and do something right now. And it's amazing how this podcast will change your life forever if you just let it.
Guys, share this with everyone that you know, love, and respect, because Dan is right. You don't get what you want, you get what you deserve in life. So you can want all these different things, success, fame, fortune. You will never get them if you're not worthy of having them. You can be worthy of having them, but you have to work on yourself.
I love it.
So one thing also, give to other people. Pay things forward. One way you can do it is just share this episode. Follow Dan, danclark.com, and Dan Clark Speak on all social media platforms.
Trust me, I need as many followers as Devin Burr has in TikTok. I think I have like 12 people following me now, so please help. Being an international superstar, the 11 that I have on Facebook don't really pay my bills either, so please help me.
Till next time, guys. Peace.